All right, and we are back. This is Doc Williams with SweaterX, and we are with who today?
I'm Doug Larson with Barbell Shrugged and Barbell Business, and now with Barbell University, which is a new project we're working on.
Good times, good times. Thank you for coming by the show, man. Definitely
Yeah,
appreciate it.
good to be here, man. Good to talk to you again. I hadn't seen you in a couple months now, so
Yeah,
good to be on the phone and be able to chat about some of the things we got coming up here in the near future.
yeah, definitely. And we're going to be talking about definitely from Strength Spectacular. We'll talk about the Barbell Business Workshop. So I guess we should start with that first. That one's coming up. It's June 3rd through the 5th, and also Barbell Business Workshop will be there in Toronto. Doug, could you tell me a little bit what's going on there at that workshop?
Yeah, we got the Barbell Business Workshop, which is distinctly different than the masterminds that we're kind of more known for. Masterminds are more kind of high end events where you take people that are very experienced and they've been doing the business thing for a long time. They've owned a gym for a long time or had a fitness business for a number of years, and they're very successful. And we kind of just bring all those experts together to talk about what has worked for them. You know, how they're making money, how they're being successful, how they get more clients, et cetera, et cetera. The workshops are not necessarily for people that have been in the industry for a long time and they that are very established. It's more for people that are they're just getting into the world of business, either new gym owners or new fitness industry CEOs that, you know, maybe you're doing something like we do with Barbell Shrug, where you do online training programs and you're dealing with athletes remotely, whether you're doing group programs or more individual training programs, or even for businesses that don't train athletes, they just happen to be in the fitness industry. If you own a nutrition company or a supplement company, or any number of businesses, fundamentally the business skills are the same. So we're teaching essentially the basics of business to people who are new to the game of business. If you've been an athlete and you've coached a lot of people, but you've never actually run your own gym, or you've never actually tried to build your own team and make your own money, so to speak, then we're essentially there to help you learn the basic skills of sales, marketing, building a team, how to deliver good customer service, how to deliver a good customer experience, all the way down to how to figure out your finances and make sure you're hitting payroll on time and things like that.
Good times. Doing these workshops and different events, Doug, what kind of, like on the spectrum, what kind of businesses have you worked with all the way on the left and then all the way on the right?
Man, primarily we deal with CrossFit gyms for sure.
Hmm.
But then anyone that's really in this kind of functional fitness world, we tend to be pretty friendly towards anyone that's like in the paleo nutrition world, or again, like I said before, they do online remote coaching. But I'd say CrossFit gyms are probably 75% of the people that we interact with on a day-to-day basis. Um, but fundamentally, the things that, again, all those businesses need are very, very similar. The skills of business, again, the skills of sales, marketing, delivering a good customer experience, building a website, delivering good content, building a team, managing those people, having good interpersonal skills, and being able to put the right people in the right seats and the right roles within your company. Again, all those skills and techniques, they cross over between almost any company that we deal with. So even though we primarily deal with gym owners, we are very friendly towards people that don't own a gym.
Gotcha. And what kind of common stress points do you see across the board when they come into these workshops? What are they looking towards, or why are they there?
I mean, I'd say by far, especially for the gym owners, is that if the common progression seems to be that you train at a gym, or you get into the CrossFit world or into the gym world, and you look around and you think like, man, I could do this. This doesn't look very hard at all. Like it can't cost that much money. It's just a warehouse and a couple kettlebells and a few barbells, and they kind of just hang out with athletes all day and just kind of talk shop and talk training. Like, this would be easy. I could totally do this on my own. And then, you get a little bit of money and you find a space and you buy some equipment, and all of a sudden you're a gym owner and you're trying to coach classes all day long, and you're trying to clean the gym, and you're trying to again recruit more clients so you can build your membership base, and you're trying to get all your marketing materials together, and you're trying to make sure that you have good contracts, and man, the list just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually you realize that like you are burnt out. And
Yeah.
so most people come to us when either they're brand new and they know that they don't know what the heck they're doing, but they want to be a gym owner, or they've been in the game for a while and they've just exhausted because they're trying to do all the work themselves, or by themselves rather. So the solopreneurs that are sick of starting at 5 a.m. with the 5 a.m. class, and then the last class of the day is like the 7 p.m. class, and then they go home and get a little bit of sleep and then try and do it all over again, and they do that most days of the week. Those are the people that get the most value out of the Barbell Business Workshops, because one of the things we primarily focus on is teaching people how to grow a real company, and not just create a big job for yourself like a lot of people tend to do when they try to do all the work themselves. So, hiring, recruiting, growing a team, managing people, and like I said, growing a real business, a business that doesn't require you to be there. Like, you can be there if you choose to be there. And a lot of people, since they love this world that we live in, this fitness world, they do choose to be there. But it's nice to have a business where you don't have to be there. We started in 2007 with CrossFit Memphis, and we eventually changed the name to Faction Strength and Conditioning, and we still have that gym to this day. And that's in Memphis, Tennessee, and we've lived in California for the last year and a half or so. And that gym still does very well. We don't have to be there on a daily basis. That gym, it doesn't run itself, but people are running it, and those people aren't us. And so, having had that experience of how to grow a gym to be very successful, and then been able to step away and have coaches and managers and all the people in place that need to be in place to run a gym successfully, we're able to now pass those skills on to other people where even if they don't want to move across the country, at least they can take a day off every once in a while and the gym won't fall apart.
Yeah. I think that's what everyone wants, honestly. Those 5 a.m. classes can be brutal. I think they need to stop. I don't see the
Yeah.
point. I mean, seriously, when was the last time, Doug, that you were at a 5 a.m. class?
I haven't been to a 5 a.m. class since I used to teach the 5 a.m. classes back in the day. And yeah, it's not my game, man. I'm a night person. I'm not a morning person. I do force myself these days to get up, between 5 and 6 because
Ooh.
I have a 1-year-old. But I don't train at that time at all.
Yeah.
I'm usually just like talking on the phone or checking my email, something very light. I tend to train at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so 5 a.m. was never my game.
There's a gym not too far from us. They have a 4:15 class.
Dang, really?
I was like, what's the, what? Like, that's insane. I will, no, that's not good at all.
5 a.m. seems to be the cutoff in my head, man. Like, anything earlier than 5 a.m., I don't know. Who's coming to that?
No one that should be awake or they haven't gone to bed. I can understand if you're there at the 4:15, but you should not be waking up before then. No, you're not having, no. Going on to the next point. Now, these workshops, how long have you guys been doing the workshops with Barbell Business?
I've been doing them a little over a year now. We started those when we got out to California, which I said was about a year and a half ago. So we do them about a couple times a year, usually here in San Diego, but this one we're doing out in Toronto, which I'm really excited about because I've never been to Toronto. And typically they're 1 or 2 days. We kind of, depending on how much time we have available to do them, we'll do a 1 or a 2 day. I believe the one in Toronto, don't quote me on it. I think it's a 2 day. Is that correct?
I think it's 2. Yes.
Days?
Mm-hmm.
That's right. So, yeah, we got a 2-day one coming up in Toronto, which I'm really excited about. I like the longer events because I feel like we get a better connection and get to know the people at the events a lot better. Typically our events are 20 or 30 people. It's usually like classroom size, which I really like because it's a little more intimate. We walk away from those events, on a first name basis with pretty much everyone in the room because we kind of just hang out all day together. They're not overly formal, really. We oftentimes, if you listen to the Barbell Business podcast, it's just a couple of guys standing around the mics, just talking, having a very normal conversation. A conversation that we would we would very likely have if we weren't doing a show. It's just us giving our thoughts on the world of business and the fitness world. So we actually run our workshops in kind of a similar fashion where it's not like a monotonous lecture with one person speaking on stage at all times. A lot of times we'll have, 2 or 3 people up on stage, and one person will talk and the other person will jump in, and it's kind of a roundtable discussion for a good portion of it. So that kind of creates a vibe in my mind where it's very casual, it's very relaxed, and we eat breakfast with the group, we eat lunch with the group, we typically take everyone out to a big dinner on 1 or 2 of the nights, and so we're just kind of hanging out for 2 days. If you have questions, we're always down to like take a 20-minute break off to the side and hang out and answer questions. We're me and Mike and AJ and Marcus and Jessica and that whole Barbell Business team, we're very available, I'll say, all day long. It's not like you're just watching a lecture on stage and then you don't get to talk to us. It's just 2 days just to get to hang out with us, and you can ask us any questions you want. We're happy to dig into your individual business and help you any way we can.
Excellent. Now, doing this in this more informal way, Doug, coming away from that, have you ever had one of your attendees or a gym owner come up to you afterwards and just said something that really struck you? Like, man, that really changed their life, and that just kind of like took you aback a little bit.
Probably the biggest thing that people come and tell us, maybe not during the event, but the months after the event, I think one of the hardest steps that a gym owner makes is hiring that first person. And so we've had people come to us many times where they're like, man, it was really hard. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know how I was going to afford it, but I finally hired that first person, and now they're taking care of, A, B, C, and D, and I don't have to do those things anymore. And man, my life is so much easier. Like, thank you for making me do that. And I remember those days. I remember that the first person I ever hired, and like what a relief it was for me to not have to do everything anymore, to be able to have someone that could take the load off of my plate, so to speak. And so we get that a lot. We get people that they haven't hired anyone ever before, and they finally hire that first person, and they are so thankful because it makes their job and their day so much easier.
Awesome. And when you're doing these different workshops, do you see that they have aha moments like during halfway through the day? Is it the wrap up that they finally get it, or what is it?
I mean, that's going to depend on each individual person. It depends on what they are struggling with individually. Some people, depending on your style, like you might be really good at networking and getting to know people. And so when I tell you to go hire somebody, like they're like, oh yeah, I know 10 people that would happily work for me. I got 5 athletes that would volunteer right now, and I could just hire one of them. But some people, they're kind of introverted, and they don't really thrive as an extrovert, so they don't network day to day, but they're really good with like the back end stuff. They're good with systems, they're good with automation, they're good with numbers, they're good with finances, and so they don't need help with numbers and finances. They need to partner with somebody who is their opposite.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that we teach as a primary principle of running a business, is that you need to partner with someone who is your opposite. Mm-hmm. Like you need like the yin and the yang, so to speak. If you have someone who's like super introverted, like numbers driven, very systems oriented, understands technology, then you have another guy who's like Mr. Party Animal, like people love him, like talks to everybody, like has a million friends, throws parties, like he just like creates the culture. Like you need those two people to play together, because one person in no matter what you're going to need to do in the business, one person, if you have that polar opposite, will be able to take on that task. Where if you're doing it all by yourself, or you have two people that are really, really similar, then there's a lot of things that'll get done really well, and there's some of the things that will never, ever, ever get done. You have a lot of holes in your game. So having that complementary partner is absolutely huge, and that's one thing that we help people figure out is, what kind of person are you? What personality type are you? What skills do you have? And then who is your polar opposite that you need to bring into the business?
Yeah. Touching on that for a moment, do you usually see duos starting businesses, especially boxes now, or is it solo? What's the major one you see?
I'd say it's tough to say usually, because I definitely see both. Um,
Hmm.
I tend to see the businesses where it's two or three people
Okay.
being more successful than the singles. I feel like the people that try to start something all by themselves, they tend to struggle for a lot longer. Which that was kind of okay 5 or 10 years ago, when the CrossFit market, if we're just talking about CrossFit gyms for the moment,
Yeah.
if the CrossFit market wasn't so saturated, like in 2007 when we opened in Memphis, we were the first CrossFit gym in Memphis, and so we were able to make a lot of mistakes because we had no competition. Where now, if you're an individual and you don't have any partners and you open a gym and you don't know what you're doing, or again, since you don't have that polar opposite in the business and you only do kind of half the work, and the other half the work that you just aren't good at or that you don't even know you're not doing isn't getting done, you don't have that much time um, to make those mistakes before you go out of business, because people are going to show up and they're going to be like, well, you know what, this obviously isn't the best gym in town, and they're going to go down the street and they're going to go somewhere else. So in my experience, the gyms that have two or three partners, they tend to do the best. The gyms that have more than that, I don't think they do very well. I've seen people that try to start a gym with 4 or 5 people, and it's kind of a shit show.
Yeah.
They usually end up fighting. In my experience, not every time, but more so than the two or three. I think two or three is kind of the magic number. If I was to tell you a single number, I would say start a gym with 3 people.
Hmm.
And if you can, like, ideally you would have a prototype CEO, COO, and CFO.
Yeah.
Obviously you would all understand the fitness world. That's just kind of a given, and that's a given assumption. But if you can have those roles where you have like the CEO, like culture driven, strategy driven, big picture, zoomed out, like leadership, people person driven person. It's a funny explanation. Um, you have the CEO type, and then you got a CFO that's like they understand finances and HR and hiring people and paperwork and all the back end accounting, all that stuff that like a lot of people just don't want to do. You need someone to do it. And then if you have someone else that's more of an operations driven person, they're going to do the day to day sales, marketing, um, equipment, logistics, day to day managerial, tactical stuff. If you have all three of those people, then it's really a magical combination. That's how most big companies operate. They have a CEO, CFO, and a COO, and they're kind of the 3 people at the top of even the big, thousands of people, tens of thousands of people for a Fortune 500 company. They still have those big 3 people at the top. If you can start a small business with those 3 types of people, again, assuming they all understand nutrition and fitness in the CrossFit world, but skills wise and personality wise, they fall into those roles very, very distinctly. Where again, no matter what happens in the business, it's just obvious which one of those 3 needs to take care of a particular task or project. Then you're not going to fight over who's going to be doing what, and everything will get done the way it needs to get done because you have the right type of people from the start.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Now, all of you guys, AJ, Mike, yourself, you guys bring different things. What do you think your background you excel at, and that you like to impart with the different attendees to the workshops?
Yeah, so if I play off of the model that I just kind of laid out, so Mike Bledsoe, who is one of my business partners, he tends to be more this prototype CEO. I tend to be more of a prototype COO, and then Rob tends to be more of a prototype CFO.
Mm-hmm.
AJ is probably more similar. If I'm just using those 3 archetypes, AJ is probably more CEO. Marcus is probably more COO, and then Jessica's probably more. She would be like a chief marketing officer. She's amazing at marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So we do between all of us that typically run the workshops, we have a lot of range in the topics that we teach. So for me personally, like I was unusually fortunate that I had a really good strength coach essentially my entire life, and 20 years ago, I was the only kid that I knew that had weightlifting shoes and used kettlebells and had Eleiko barbells that I could do Olympic weightlifting lift with. And it just wasn't a big thing. Like I did gymnastics growing up, I did weightlifting growing up, and I did it my whole life. And then all of a sudden, in graduate school, while I was on the Olympic weightlifting team for the University of Memphis, a Navy SEAL buddy of ours was came from San Diego to learn weightlifting from us because he was doing CrossFit with the Navy SEAL teams. And so we learned what CrossFit was, and we looked for it in town, and there wasn't one. And once I realized that it was basically weightlifting, gymnastics, and I got a master's degree in kinesiology and a minor in clinical nutrition. Once I realized that CrossFit gyms were basically what I've done my whole entire life, and very similar to Mike Bledsoe, what he'd done his whole entire life, it just made sense that we would get involved somehow, some way. So Mike ended up starting the gym, and when I graduated graduate school, I told him that I was going to move to Australia for a while, which I did. And then when I came back from Australia, 6 months later, I bought in as an owner, and me and Mike ran the gym ever since. So that was kind of my fitness background. Business wise, man, I didn't have a business background. Once I realized I was going to be running a gym, the day to day technician side of running a gym with training people to get bigger, stronger, faster, and better endurance, lose fat, gain muscle, like all that type of stuff was like so obvious. I'd done it my whole life. It was no question that I could do that part. It was how do we keep making enough money each month to stay in business. That was the hard part. So it ended up where instead of studying fitness every day of my life, which I basically had done up to that point, in my free time for school or otherwise, I'd always just constantly learning and reading about training and nutrition. I decided that I should probably only dedicate maybe like 25% of my time to that, and the other 75% of my time I had to start learning about the game of business, and that meant again, customer experience, how to make good products, how to figure out what people wanted, how to recruit people and bring them into your business, how to to figure out what they wanted so you could match your service to their needs and give them what they wanted and what they need, and then how to sell them, how to monetize, how to build a team and a company and systems around that so you don't have to do all the work yourself. That became my full-time gig, and that was again back in between 2007 2009 I started learning all that stuff, and I've been very voraciously reading, very voraciously. I've been voraciously. It's a hard word.
There we go.
Reading about business and learning about business ever since, and now it's one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah, Doug, is there a certain like there's some people say Seth Godin. There's different books, different authors, maybe Purple Cow. That's like, man, like it's the Matrix now. I see it. Is there a publication that you're like, man, I've modeled this?
That has, sorry, what was the last thing you said?
That you have taken their model and used it for your benefit? Anything like that? Just one single book that stands out among the rest.
One single book. I was bringing up my book list as you're saying this. I was going to
okay.
storm you with books. But
all right,
I'll
top five.
Okay, I'll give you a top five. So probably my favorite book of all time is Drive by Daniel Pink.
Nice.
And that's all about the psychology of intrinsic motivation. How to get people to want to do something for themselves rather. The biggest takeaway from that book was that if you want someone to be intrinsically motivated, then they need to have autonomy, they need to be pursuing mastery, and they need to have a purpose that's driving them, that's bigger than themselves. I won't do a full book review, but like that's kind of the big picture of that book, which is fantastic. So definitely go read Drive. Traction is a very good book, especially if you already have something that's working. You already have a business that's kind of up and going, and you want to optimize and scale your business. And that's more of a resource almost, where you essentially you're never done optimizing your business. You could always refer back to Traction, and it would help you refine some aspect of your business, whether it's providing a vision and core values and determining the mission and purpose of your business rather, or whether it's figuring out all of your metrics and data and how to quantify all the millions of things that you're doing. That way, all of your employees know that they have certain accountabilities and they have ownership over certain projects, and that you're again quantifying their output, so they have some measurement to their work, where they know if they're doing a good job or if they're doing a bad job, or on and on and on. Traction will help you figure out all these things that you need to do to run a successful company. Spin selling is very, very good, where if you don't know anything about sales and marketing, or specifically sales in this case, then it's kind of a scary world where most people, they look at sales and they don't want to do it. It scares them because they don't want to be the sleazy used car salesman, that's pushing something onto somebody that obviously they don't want and obviously isn't good for them, but you're doing it anyway because you're trying to make money, and you don't give a shit about the person that you're talking to. Like, nobody wants to be that person. That's a bad person, and that's the definition of bad sales, not good sales, right? If somebody sells you something and they do a really good job of selling you something, you don't consider that person a salesman. Like, that person doesn't count, right? Because they did such a good job that you're like, well, that person wasn't a salesman. They're not the person I'm talking about. Yeah. When people refer to salespeople, they only refer to bad salespeople. But the good salespeople, they're so good that you like them and you're happy to buy what they're offering because they did a good job of it. Your goal is to be that person. Very similar to, like, the people that bash CrossFit. They're not bashing good strength and conditioning that is used to pursue the sport of CrossFit. They're bashing just like doofuses on YouTube that don't know what they're doing. Yeah. Right? Yeah. That's essentially how that works. So spin selling can make the process of selling a little bit easier to understand. And it makes it where it's much less about, hey, I have this thing and I'm going to make you buy it. And it's more about finding out, having a conversation with somebody and finding out what they need, like what kind of concerns they have in their life, what their fears and frustrations are, what their situation is, what kind of problems they're having, what kind of problems those problems are causing. In an ideal world, like, if they could solve this problem, what would their life look like, and how specifically would everything be better? And then once you figure out like what somebody needs, if you have a variety of products available to you or services available to you that can solve those problems, then you can directly connect your product or service to the need that they're trying to solve, and they'll buy it because they know that you understand where they're coming from. Anyone that's ever tried to sell anything to anybody, whether it's, whether you're trying to sell someone a pair of jeans or a pair of shoes or a car or an idea, like you could be in the gym and say, hey, I don't think you should do, again, if we're talking about the CrossFit world, we could say, well, the workout on the board says front squats, but I don't think you should do front squats. You probably should do back squats instead. And they might be really resistant. And you could just say, no, you need to do back squats. And they're like, why? You're like, just trust me, just go do it. And like, in that case, like, you might not have sold that idea to that person because they have no idea why you're saying what you're saying. So if you've gotten into a conversation about, okay, well, I remember last week you told me that, that your wrist hurt from doing thrusters or overhead squats or whatever. And so in your specific case, you probably shouldn't do front squats today. You probably should do back squats. It'd be a lot easier on your wrist because I don't want you to hurt your wrist. You got a competition coming up next week. And then you have this back and forth conversation where they feel like, oh, okay, this person really understands me specifically, and now I will accept their idea because I feel understood. So spin selling lays out a very easy to follow model to teach somebody how to sell without being salesy.
That's excellent. And I think a lot of people, like you mentioned, they just struggle with that. But giving them that critical thinking to be able to justify why they're saying it, huge difference, especially in gyms. Man, that's I'm writing that down. So we did the 3. Did you give me 5, Doug? Did you give me 3? How many?
I don't know. I think I gave you 3. I can give you more if you want me to. If you want to cut me off, you're welcome to.
The people can only handle so much. Okay. But 3. Those are 3 definite, wonderful tips that will help them in their business today, for sure.
Absolutely.
So, then that's great. Then real quick, before we let you go, Doug, we're going to do a lightning speed round of just questions. You are not allowed to say pass. You have to answer it.
Okay.
And then, but if you suddenly, quote unquote, get disconnected for some odd reason, I know that, it's the end of the interview.
The connection is very spotty in here. So
yeah.
It could happen.
So what we're going to do is we're going to start with a couple and then let me know. So the first one is what is your main motivation when going into all these different endeavors? You've been Barbell Shrugged, business, university. What's the motivation behind all of this?
So my motivation with business is very similar to my motivation with fitness. I'm I'm pursuing mastery in a way, like in the fitness world. Whether whether I actually ever deadlift 600 pounds, I don't really care. Like the actual outcome isn't as important to me as the process. Like for me, I want to do everything as well as I can to see how far I can go, and that's very fulfilling to me. If tomorrow I just deadlifted 600 pounds, I mean, I'd be like, well, that's cool, but it wouldn't be fulfilling because it was just handed to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does.
Business is very similar. Like I really enjoy business. Like it's a deep category, and I love learning about each individual aspect of it. And so for me, that pursuit of mastery, which there's no such thing as mastery. You can never get to mastery. It's an unachievable thing to do, to master anything. There's always a next level. And so the thing that motivates me day to day is that pursuit of mastery. It's fun for me to continue to learn and evolve. Anytime I don't feel like I'm learning, evolving, and growing, then I kind of get bored and I want to move on to something else. So for me, that's why I have headphones everywhere I go. I'm always learning as much as I possibly can about every single aspect of business that I can. That way, every single day, I feel like I'm growing as a person, and that's what keeps me motivated. That's what keeps me fulfilled. Back to drive, right? I said
Yeah.
autonomy, mastery, and purpose. That's one of the things that he said. Mastery is one of the big intrinsic motivators, and so I wasn't thinking about that when I said this, but I suppose that proves one of his points.
Yeah. Hey, and when you were mentioning that, just mastery and everything, I'm not sure. There's a new book. Well, it's not new. It's came out in the last 10 months. It's called Hooked, and it's talking about how to start basically behaviors or start a platform that gets people wanting to engage. And that was one of them. It was talking mastery, building a tribe, community, and then one other. But very good points. Very good points.
Cool. I haven't read that yet. I'll go look it up.
Yeah, it's and they've done a creative live class about it as well. That's what I was watching. Awesome stuff. If someone was to describe you in one word, what would it be?
I'd probably say consistent.
Mm-hmm.
I am very, very consistent in things that I do. I tend to be a good finisher.
Mm-hmm.
We talked earlier about having kind of your polar opposite in the world of business. You want to have someone who's a good starter on your team, and you want to have someone who's a good finisher
Mm-hmm.
on your team, someone who starts projects and someone who finishes projects, because they tend not to be the same person. So I tend to be a very good finisher, which means that I can stick with something for a very long period of time, even if it takes me a long time to actually start doing something new.
Mm-hmm.
So I have Mike on my team, who is a good starter, and like that's a condition that I've put into my life. I know I'm not a good starter, and so I have Mike because he'll start things for me, and that he pulls me into new worlds all the time. And then if it tends to be something that I enjoy, then I will stay very consistent and push through and again pursue mastery within that category. And because I'm very consistent, I tend to be the finisher on the team.
Excellent. That's awesome. Now, when looking at how long has Barbell Shrugged been going on? How many years?
Let's see. The first technique WOD, which started right before the show started, was 4th of July 2011.
Wow.
And then we started recording Barbell Shrugged episodes like November of 2011. And the first episode, I think, posted February of 2012. So we're 4.5 years deep now.
Okay. If you think back at that first Technique WOD video and think about yourself, if you could go back in time and talk to him right now, what would you say to yourself?
Oh, man. You caught me off guard with that, man. I didn't know you were asking me that.
No.
That's big. I don't know. I feel like I'm a very similar person to who I was
Mm-hmm.
back then, and I don't feel like I've made any just horrific mistakes that I'm really looking to avoid that didn't make me who I am today. So,
Yeah.
um, I don't know, man. You said I can't pass, but I'm gonna skip.
Okay, no worries. Well, you're going to pass this as one last thing, then
All right.
how are you guys going to keep innovating then? How are you going to keep doing it? You've done so much. Uh, you've got the NASA episode coming out very soon, so we
We
see
do.
progression. So how do you guys keep it going?
Well, again, I think having conditions. I when I say condition, I mean um, putting something in place in your life that makes what you want to have happen automatically. And so, in my case, again, um, one of my conditions for innovation is having people that, like I said before, um, they're naturally idea people and they're good starters, like I said. And so we have many people like that on the team, but if I just reference Mike one more time, he is someone who has a million ideas every day, um, and he is good at starting new projects. And so, in a way, it's almost like I don't have to innovate within the company because I have someone for that. And so, as long as I can keep Mike on the team, I don't feel like we're ever going to have a problem with finding new ideas. And I certainly come up with ideas. It's not like I don't ever come up with anything, but Mike's like a mile a minute when it comes to generating ideas. So as long as I can keep him on the team, I feel like we're going to have ideas, way more ideas than we even know what to do with, which is pretty much what's happening right now.
What you got to do is you got to start writing them down, put them off to the side, you know, just in case. You've got 60 years in the in the back room, just in case, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
If there's one thing I learned about business, that ideas are a dime a dozen. Like, you're never going to not have ideas. It's all about picking the right idea and then staying focused and executing on that single idea until that project is completed. That's
Yeah.
the hard part.
Yeah.
Ideas are easy.
Man, then Doug, I appreciate your time. Once again, it's going to be coming up, the Barbell Business Workshop that's going to be at the Strong Pro Trainers 2016 Expo and Summit that will be in Toronto, Canada, June 3rd through the 5th. They can find tickets at barbellbusiness.com, and the link is there. And
Yep,
then
you go to Barbell Business and just look for the Barbell Workshop tab.
excellent. And also, we are redirecting it as well to the strongprosummit.com. It directs to your site as well.
Okay, beautiful.
Doug, thanks again for taking the time, man. Much appreciated, and we look forward to seeing you in a couple months in Toronto.
All right, thanks, Doc. Appreciate it, bud.